sister that's the hostess with the mostest. Ah, she's waving at me. Waiting for Emily, connecting.
There she
Jababoom.
is.
What's up? What's up?
Hello, hello. Welcome to the well.
Welcome to the well.
Welcome to the
Hello,
well.
everyone.
Are you going live on your Facebook yet there, brother?
I am, yeah.
Okay, here we go. It's showtime. I
Are
just
you
got
good?
a notification. I believe so. Here we go.
Yeah, we're good.
We're connected. You're live. We're in the broadcast.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
If you are interacting with us via Facebook, I've not figured out a way to see that live yet, so forgive me. If you're interacting with us via Instagram, we can't see that live, so we're going to say hello. Welcome. This is The Well. My name is Jomar. I am a transformative and transitional coach. I help folks get really drastically clear about what it is that they just from the deepest of their bones want. And we journey together to go get it and see what unfolds.
Nice. My name's Emily. I am also a coach. I consider myself a transformational leader. Right now, the focus in my business is working with owner-operators, CEOs, and small to medium-sized teams to optimize culture, optimize remote working, increase company morale, and really align these teams and these businesses to specific visions and commitments, and foster the new paradigm of leadership that is needed in this day and age to bring those visions to fruition. So thanks for joining us here on The Well. And today we're talking about action, the myth, the clarity, the myth of clarity, the vision, the action, and Mr. J is going to freestyle vamp for us on his take on this.
Yeah. So what really brought this about for me when we were texting Em on why this topic this week was I was on a coaching call with a potential client at this point, and we came upon sort of a fork in the road during a call where she was expressing she had expressed a vision. There was sort of a nudging that's been ongoing for months, years for her, so we had arrived at that conclusion, and then there was this sort of pause, this hesitation about in that moment, and the question was, I really would like to have more clarity now before I commit to this. I really would like to have this sense of like fire before I dive into this. And I could not relate more to what she said in that moment. I was like, oh, me too. If I had a penny for every time I've said that about anything that I've wanted to do, I would be a millionaire today. And so that's what brought it about, which is through my journey, I've seen that that's a myth. Clarity does not come before you take action. Clarity comes when you do take actions. And I think the hesitation comes from this sort of story we start to believe once we have this vision, and the story might be the action needs to be grand, and it needs to be bold, and it needs to be just big. Right now that we have this vision, I need to jump into this with both feet to be able to get that clarity, and that's just not been my experience. I think action brings about more clarity about your vision. And action does not need to be grand. It can be just ever so slightly on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis, putting in one tiny log in the fire. Perhaps, even lighting a match to see if there's actually fire behind the smoke. And if you can slow it down to that tiny step, like what is a tiny action you can do this week that you can commit to, then there's clarity on the other side of that. And that's been my experience.
Beautiful. What I'm hearing is never underestimate the power of taking a baby step.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
What
there's a
about
bit
you,
of
Em?
a well, I think there's a bit of a misconception, like along the lines of what you're saying, that action has to be, massive and bold and on your edge all the time. And certainly action can look that way. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's not the only way that we need to take action. And I think like when I think about action, I wrote this in our post leading up to this and also referring to what you mentioned earlier, was how crucial it is to actually have a vision when it comes as it pertains to taking action. I
Mhm.
think it was Michael Beckwith that said this. I don't actually know, so forgive me. I can't give credit where credit is due. And it is that, action without vision is chaos, and vision without action is fantasy.
Mm.
So really wrapping your head around that, like where are you living either in chaos, or where are you living in, on the other spectrum, in fantasy? And where can you bring your vision and your action together to move forward in the cultivation process, the nurturing process, kind of what you were talking about earlier, in the sense of like, it's okay to like figure it out as you go within the container of the vision that you have, right? That clarity is not always going to come. It's the results more often than not don't actually look usually the way that you think they're going to look at sort of the inception or the creation process of whatever your vision is. So
Yeah.
there's also this element of practicing some grace with yourself along the way and allowing yourself to see what shows up in alignment with your vision as it pertains to taking action, because you may find that you take action in a very small way that has a huge impact, or you may find that you take some massive, huge action in a way that you weren't necessarily prepared or didn't think you were going to do at the inception. So just understanding that, action and vision are a symbiotic relationship. And you'll know if you're lacking in one of them, if you're either in chaos or feeling a little bit, maybe more flighty, a little bit more in fantasy.
That's so good. I want to there's so much to unpack there. I want to slow down and break that down a little bit. So say it again. Action.
So action without vision
Hmm.
is chaos.
Okay, break that down for me. Like, how is that ground that in something real? Like, what do you
Okay.
mean?
So without a clear vision, I could say have like a very loose idea of what I want to create in my business, for example,
Hmm.
right? I've been in these shoes before, right?
Right.
And I don't have a strategy and I don't have a vision. I just have this idea that like I want to be a successful coach. So I'm running around filling my time with things that aren't productive or strategic. I'm, having unnecessary conversations, probably wasting a lot of time, maybe either connecting with people or thinking that I need to have a perfect website with like, 800 offerings and my whole life story, and that has to be meticulously perfect and copywritten, you know, so beautifully. And I'm running around creating a lot of, I'm in action, but I'm not in action aligned with a vision. There's no strategy behind my action. And therefore, I'm creating chaos in the sense of probably wasting a lot of time, probably burning myself out, probably not feeling genuinely fulfilled, or even aware of whether or not I'm actually creating what I want to create,
Yep.
because I'm not grounded in a very specific vision. Therefore, just sort of like wasting a lot of time. I imagine, like, I've experienced before, flailing about, kind of like throwing a bunch of shit to the wall and just seeing what sticks,
Without
as
vision.
opposed to being right, as opposed to being meticulous, operating inside the container of what my specific vision is, and then taking strategic action aligned with that vision.
So what's the
Right.
second part of that? Let's break down the second part.
Yeah. So then vision without action is fantasy. Right? So I might have this idea, again, I might have this grandiose idea of like, I'm going to be a successful coach. and I think about it all the time, and I imagine what it would feel like, and I think about the impact that I would have on my clients, and I imagine all these wonderful public speaking gigs I'm going to book. And, and I can go off literally to a whole
Right.
other world, right?
Fantasy world.
Fantasy world, because I'm not in any tangible, physical action around bringing that vision closer to fruition, making that vision my reality.
Yeah. And what I love about the other thing you said earlier is that results and outcomes often do not look like what the initial vision was. That you could like this is in the startup tech world. I'm always working with founders. There's this word that gets tossed around, which is pivot. Pivot essentially is like, oh, here's a vision we had. We think it's going to work out this way. We're going to pivot because it's clearly pointing us somewhere else. So in the balance of action and vision, there is this, I like to say, transrational relationship with outcomes where you're sort of pointing your arrow in a direction, knowing that, if you're a creator, if you're an entrepreneur, oftentimes that direction hasn't been reached before, at least by you. It may have looked like, a certain way for somebody else, but for you, the end destination and the path to get there is going to be completely unique to you. So yeah, all of this that we're talking about, clarity and vision, there's a fine balance with it all. What I'm hearing is vision needs to be clear. You have to be drastically clear on what you want. You can say, I want to be a powerful coach. Okay, that's a start. Let's get more clear about that. And then action, okay, I want to start coaching people. I'm going to get more clear about that. And so there's always sort of a fine tuning of it is what I'm hearing you say as we're vamping on this.
Well, I'll vamp for another moment on what I believe we are really talking about, and what you referred to is like, perhaps these owner operators in this startup space. And what I find with a lot of leaders in general is, we're having to, especially now as leaders, start operating within a new paradigm of leadership, right? Particularly one that's adaptable to being online. And so here's what I'll break down in that sense, because again, these results may not always come to fruition the way that you think they're going to, although you still have to operate within a clear vision. But here's the tools. So the new paradigm of leadership involves what you said, the ability to pivot, the ability to be resilient, and the ability to be adaptable. And I think that is what we are saying when we are talking about rising to this new paradigm of leadership in honor of creating results aligned with our vision. Because, there's so many examples of companies that were not willing to be adaptable, were not willing to be resilient, were not willing to pivot, right? Because they were so, closed-fisted, attached to having their specific result look a certain way. So we need to, surrender what the result will look like while still operating in alignment with what the vision is. And sometimes that even changes, right? And that's okay too.
We could keep unpacking this stuff, but
sure.
let's wrap it. I guess the invitation sounds like here, I guess, for people who want homework and watch this now or later is, from what Emily said, where are you? Are you in the sort of action without vision? Are you more leading yourself forward, right, in that side of the equation? Or are you more in the vision without action part of the equation? I know for me, I'm generally on the latter. I have to, that's why I hire coaches, because, I'll have self accountability on the action side. That's something to perhaps consider and reflect on this week.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think to simplify it even more is, do you find that you're operating in fantasy or in chaos? And if so, how could you ground yourself with either refining your vision or being more strategic in your action?
So good.
And with that, we bid you adieu.
Bye 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 bye.
We
Peace
see you
out.
next week. Ciao, ciao.